I'm so depressed.
Orange juice.
You mean you really want to pass up 3 days in the Bajoran outback?
I'm pregnant.
It's Jake. Jake Sisko, remember me?
Yes, remember me? I am Jeff Mader, host of D6 9 at 9ish, joined as always by my brother Dave Mader.
Hello.
We are here. Hello, Dave. We are covering season 4, episode 21, The Muse. It's all about two women coming to the station and doing some mischief and some different. They have plans. These two women that come to the station in this episode. We have Waxana and the said Muse. Dave, is this episode more about these two women, or is it more about Odo and Jake?
It's more about Odo and Jake.
Yeah, I think you're right, but these two women really kind of take center stage in a lot of ways in this episode and have a lot of the dialogue, and I feel like the other two react more, but I agree with what you're saying that it's definitely focused on those two characters and what they're all about. Jake Sisko and what he represents. We have, his writing abilities and kind of coming into his own and kind of needing that push and maybe, needing some sort of, we start this episode off with him kind of reading everybody coming onto the station and coming up with like little stories in his head in his usual spot up on the second floor of the promenade. And then you have Odo, who's kind of got this like lonely orphan kind of tale where only Waxana sees that he's beautiful. And
right,
these two kind of come together. Yeah. What do you consider the A storyline in this episode?
Interesting question, because I was trying to figure it out throughout the whole thing. I was like, what's the A plot? What's the B plot? It's like almost like two B plots got glued together into one episode. And really, I think there was an episode in season 3 where Jake and Nog had a B plot that had nothing to do with like the main storyline. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it had something to do with maybe with the other plot was more serious, and Jake and Nog were sort of up to more like teenage shenanigans, and tonally it didn't quite fit together. I feel like this is a little bit more of the same, where like we got to give Jake a story and this is the best we got, and the writer's room was like, well, we have this other storyline with Odo where we want to kind of wrap up or do something different with his story with Luxana, and that's what we got here, the Muse. I don't know.
It's not my favorite episode, but I don't know. I found it kind of ironic, some of the things that were going on in this episode, just with my real life, where, Amanda was trying to get me to feel the baby kicking tonight. We have the whole Roxana's I'm pregnant, and, she arrives on the station and she's kind of like, right from the beginning, both these women are roping these two men, Odo and Jake, into their plans. And they don't really have any consequence for their well-being. I would argue that the Muse has more of a caring for Jake than Waxana does for Odo.
I'd be interested to hear that argument, because the Onaya, the energy vampire or whatever the heck she is,
she's like a succubus, basically.
She's like a succubus. She seemed, I was, as I was watching this, I felt like she was maybe related to Ronan, Beverly's like ghost candle, a lover from the 7th season episode Sub Rosa of TNG. Like this was, wow. It's like, come on, this is not a good story. This Onaya story, but I think that it's so basic.
Okay, here's my problem. What I think they should have done with this episode was scrap the Waxana Odo stuff. They didn't need it, and I think they should have focused on what Jake's story was and had some of the other actors portray Jake's story. I think that's what they should have done.
You mean like what the novel was?
Yeah.
Okay, and then like what? So there's more of a slower build towards the reveal that Onaya is, sucking him dry or whatever.
Yeah, or like or we just get to see like a different narrative. I don't think they needed to do the Waxana Odo storyline here. Like, I just think it was an unnecessary thing that they kind of wanted to do, and Jake's episode kind of got taken from him here, where he kind of had to. I don't know. Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe they had written the Waxana Odo stuff first, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have enough, and we should do something with Jake." And maybe that's what they did. I don't know, but from like narratively, I think they should have focused more on the Jake novel and what the succubus girl was all about and where she was from, and I think that would have been far more interesting. That we've already gotten this episode with Waxana and Odo. This just was just like another stupid ruse that Waxana had to go through to like some sort of, I don't know. I don't enjoy Waxana on Deep Space Nine. I like her in TNG quite a bit. I find like her like a good like folly for Deanna.
And yeah, like in her appearances on TNG, she's the overbearing mother, right? And her place on Deep Space Nine is like she's like this she has this unrequited love story with Odo that goes back to season 1, right?
Yeah.
And so like they throw an episode. I don't understand why people are so down on her all the time. I think that Majel Barrett played this role well. I think that her story with Odo is good. I think that like I was kind of left after this episode saying, why did Odo? I maybe you were meant to be with Loxana, not with Kira. But that's not the way the writers wanted. They were like, well, the will they, won't they? Him pining after Kira, which they eventually do pay off down the road. And I think that story was good, but I think that his connection here and the speech he gives at the wedding when he wants to convince Michael and Sarah, who's in this episode too, very briefly, that he wants to marry her. I thought it was good. I thought that Rene Auberjonois like shows off a lot of his talent in this episode. I think that he always tries to bring it. I think he always tried to make these episodes work with Majel Barrett, and it's probably the thing that works the best for me. The stuff with Onaya and Jake, it falls flat.
I agree that it falls flat, but narratively, it's way more intriguing. I don't see any room for growth here with the Odo Waxana. It's basically already understood that this isn't a real relationship, even though Odo kind of explains like a lot of the good things that Waxana saw in him and he saw in her. And yes, that's all well and good and fine and dandy. But for me, I don't care. And I don't think the majority of the Star Trek audience cares about this relationship. Like, I just don't think even from Odo's perspective, I think we kind of watched this episode and go like, what are you doing, Odo? Like, this is kind of desperate. Like I get what you're saying, but like, I think you need to kind of grow here a little bit, Odo. And she's using you to get what she wants. What are you doing?
But he's giving this selflessly. Like this was a big move for Odo. He's like, I'll marry you. I'll be like almost like like a beard wedding. Like it's it's a sham wedding, but it's also not, because his friendship for her is legitimate and he does care about her, and he even turns into a blanket at one point. I kept thinking, why couldn't he turn into a chair a few seconds ago, or part of him into a chair, because she had nowhere to sit down. But he was able to give her a blanket. And I think that because there was like an installment with her and him in each season leading up to this, I think it's pretty good. I think this episode mostly works because of these two. Not, I get that most people, the audience doesn't really care about it, or and maybe she's not everybody's cup of tea. I get that too. Like maybe she overstayed her welcome in Star Trek. Because I think this is it for Majel Barrett after this. I don't think
this the last episode they did.
I think this is the last episode she ever did on screen playing this character.
See, like, yeah, that's kind of the bummer for me, because like this episode's kind of just silly. Like it's just like it's not a great. It's a good send off. Like if it was Odo's life, if it was Renee Auberjonois' last episode, but she doesn't have a lot to do in this episode. I mean, she just kind of is reacting a lot to what Odo wants to do, and Michael and Sarah. Like I don't know, like I just think it wasn't very intriguing for me to watch her in this episode. I just thought she's like, I kept thinking back to Steve Shives and like, you know, his kind of criticism of Majel Barrett's portrayal here. I think she's supposed to be annoying. I think she's supposed to be irritating to the audience member, but at the same time, like she's very unlikable. Like I don't find myself like I don't no idea other than the fact that she was willing to give Odo attention, but it seems like for nefarious reasons a lot of the time. So I feel like Odo's placement of his friendship in her is misplaced. I don't think it's very genuine from Roxana's point of view towards Odo. She just arrives when she needs to use him for something, and he kind of goes, all right, well, you know what, you did kind of talk to me that one time when nobody was talking to me, so I'll do this for you. And I don't, to me, that doesn't land. Whereas the Jake stuff, I kind of think some of it does land, but I think where they fall short is they don't spend enough time explaining who the Muse is. What, like, you know, they kind of do it briefly at the end of the episode when Cisco confronts her, but like, I think if we had just learned a little bit more where she comes from, or like what planet, or like what kind of an alien she is, and this episode was more just about her and Jake, I think it would have been much better. What do you think?
I was left very unsatisfied with this part of the episode. I think like the fact that she just flies away, like Cisco tries to shoot her, she turns into an energy thing, she poofs away, and that's the end, right? And we get no more explanation here. There's no justice to this episode. She nearly kills Jake. And the other thing we learned was that I guess you can't beam somebody out if they're too close to the reactor, the main reactor in the station. Which was, I guess, you know, a minor thing, but because they're down in the lower levels or whatever. But she comes along and says, I've met all the greatest artists, and I knew them all. I knew this architect, I knew this dude. And she's like, oh, that's cool. Don't you want to be remembered, Jake? And she plays to his vanity. And I think there's some interesting stuff there about, you know, what motivates Jake? You know, he doesn't want to be a Starfleet officer like his dad. He wants to be a writer. Why? What he wants to tell stories, but you know, he kind of admits that he has ambition. He wants to be remembered. He wants to make a mark. He wants his life to mean something. And so she kind of like pushes him to start having all this creative outlet, even write on paper, Jeff. Like, come on, like go, like even cursive writing for that matter, which they don't even teach to kids in this century. So, you know, pretty impressive, Jake, you know, with that cursive writing and the paper. Yeah. And I don't know. Like, I just think that there's a good nugget of a story here. I think that this could have been a much better episode for Jake. Take out the Odo and Loxana storyline and maybe expand upon it, like you're saying. But I don't feel like they felt like they had enough here. You could have thrown more. You could have thrown more Captain Cisco into this.
Yeah, I think they missed some beats here. Like, yeah, he's literally shows up right at the end, Dave, and he's kind of like this character that, like, yeah, like I think they could have done a lot with the Muse, and like, like you're right, she poofs off and flies into space, and they're like, okay, back to an Odo Waxana scene. She's leaving the station, and he's like, oh, I thought you were having the baby here. It's just like, oh, I don't want to, like, you just had this like woman try to kill Jake, and now we're talking about having a baby back on Beta's. Like, it's just like the whole episode does not flow for me. It like even though
these two storylines, I've never seen two storylines so unconnected to one another.
Yeah, like the only real connection between the two episodes is kind of what I was saying before, which is that it's two women come to the station and kind of have ulterior motives to kind of manipulate the men that they kind of already that they kind of look at as marks. They're kind of like it's like a heist movie, like, you know, like dynamic between both Waxana and the Muse. They're both out for something. You know, Waxana is trying to get, like, they're con artists, basically. Like, you know, do you kind of see it that way?
Anaya, absolutely. I don't think Loxana is a con artist. I think
I do.
I'm not as harsh on her. I think that like yeah, like maybe her friendship with Odo is a little too one-sided, I guess. If there's a criticism here, but like I don't know. The fact that
why
she's
is Waxana on the station, Dave? Why does she come there?
so Odo will protect her from Jael, from
Right.
Michael and Sarah.
Right. And how does she have to get him to protect her?
Well, he comes up with the plan to marry her.
Oh,
but
it was completely his idea out of the blue.
Well, according to him,
It was a
according to the
complete
episode.
con job, in my opinion.
Do you think she already knew this? She already knew the
Yes.
legal.
I think this whole thing was like a complete ruse to get Odo to do that. She knew she could manipulate Odo's emotions and get him to do this. And a good con is only a good con when you get the other person to have the idea first, just like you just said. It was his idea.
But the episode doesn't go out of its way to show it. We don't see like a little look out of Luxana when, right? So there's nothing here that's implicitly direct that says that she was trying to like manipulate him directly. She seems like she's just scared. She talks about the fact, I thought it was an interesting callback to her daughter Kestra, who we learned about in Next Generation, the sister that Deanna never knew, that died as a child in the drowning, who Kirsten Dunst reminded her of in that episode. And she talked about like, I lost that child. I don't want to lose this child, and like, because I've lost family members and husbands and parents, but and a sibling she even mentions, but no, like nothing compared to that. And I can't go through that again. And I'm like, well, yeah, man, Deanna Troi is about to become a sister. And Deanna Troi by this point is like in her late 30s.
Luxana is pretty old to be having a baby. I mean, I know she's a different species, but like, what's going on there?
I don't know. This was a weird one. Like the fact. Okay, the last time we even saw her was during the Xanthi fever episode. What's that called? Who cares? But it's she was. Like last time so what we're led to believe is like she came out of the episode where she kind of admits to Odo that if you ever get tired of waiting for Kira,
Xanthi fever.
That's right, Loxana. Like you ever get tired of waiting for Kira, I'll be waiting. Well, she didn't wait too long because according to the story, she left pretty much right away. She met Michael Ansara's character, married him, got pregnant, and then found out about all like these kind of like old school or kind of specific parenting philosophies that this species has. Men raise the boys, females raise the girls, this is not going to work. She's not going to have her son taken away from her. I
don't know. There's a lot with Roxana, Dave, that like they never give you the background details of her. Like why did she meet this guy? What was the reason? Because I think again, knowing her, she is kind of like was trying to get to somebody or was trying to learn something or trying to figure something out from his culture, so it would help her in some other way. Like she seems like nothing is like without purpose with Roxana. There's always some sort of, but she acts like she's oblivious. She acts like, oh, I'm just happened to be in these set of circumstances. It's like, really, yeah, okay, sure. You just happen to want to have Odo protect you. Like it was just this. It was just on a whim. Like no, this was like everything seems very pre-planned and detailed of what she's doing. Like the whole scene, Dave, where she's like, where she, she's what did she say? Like something's she couldn't sleep, and her replicator was broken, so she had to come see Odo, right? And then, then she's like all cuddling up with Odo. And then Odo says to her, like, yeah, your replicator's not really broken, is it? And she goes, no. Like, there's always that element with her where it's like everything starts off on a lie. And then you have to slowly unravel that onion to where you end up finding out, like, oh, she's playing me.
Right.
Do you feel like that's kind of who she is?
I guess so. Yeah. Like that's part of the reason Deanna Troi is always annoyed with her.
Yeah, because also Deanna can read her mind, and like they can speak telepathically, so like there's also part of that, I think. But like she's a very good con artist, but at the same time she knows this would not work on anyone else other than Odo. Like she couldn't do this to Julian, or maybe Julian, but definitely not O'Brien or any of the other main cast here. It can only be Odo because he's kind of like the most childish. She seems to do this to kind of like the most innocent, childish type personalities.
Except for, well, more. I was just thinking about Jake. Isn't he more childlike?
Well, I think I don't think it's a coincidence that Jake's in this episode and being manipulated by an older woman that is, basically sucking him of his energy. I think there's like a lot of parallels, and they saw a lot of parallels in this episode that they used on purpose to tell, like you're saying, like they're disconjointed stories, and in some ways they are, but in some ways there's a lot of parallels going on. I just think you kind of don't look at Roxana the way I think I do, and a lot of the other writers I think clearly view her as like kind of what Steve Shives with suspicion. But Odo doesn't, because like she was nice to me when nobody else really was, and kind of understood me, right. And he kind of says that in this episode. But does she really understand him? Like I think there's a part of like she understands him, but it's like for a motive, it's for a need, it's for something that she needs. And I think she's kind of a fascinating character because we never really understand what is going on with her, I feel like.
Yeah, like I always give her kind of more of the benefit of the doubt. I don't have a natural disdain for her as much as like maybe Steve Shives and a few others do. And I feel bad for her in this episode more than anything. Is that like, she's like her husband's like she's property, and why did she get involved with this guy in the first place? It's kind of a confusing thing.
And coming to the show, we have Jaemeel Robinson here to talk about the Muse. Jaemeel, hot take on Roxana Troy. Is she a con artist or is she not? Is she just a person in an unfortunate set of circumstances?
She is neither a con artist or a person in an unfortunate circumstance. She is a person who has a certain set of skills and is only able to present and deal with people, interact with people in a certain way. And that's the way she works with Odo. Same way she works with her daughter. Same thing she has done previously with Worf as well.
I have an unfortunate set of circumstances, a set of skills.
Skills, exactly. I apologize for my late arrival. There was a worldwide issue that my company was dealing with, but I apologize that it took so long.
Worldwide?
Worldwide.
Wow. Okay.
Get some buzzing from you, Jaemeel, I think.
Tiny little bit, yeah. Just that buzzing. Buzz. No,
buzzing
gone.
Stopped?
No, it's gone.
No.
Oh, it's gone.
It's gotten worse.
It's gone worse.
Oh, I hear it now, yeah.
Oh,
you had it gone there for a second. No, it sounds like a fridge.
It's like a fridge. It's like you're near a refrigerator.
It's cloudless.
There. Oh, gone.
Okay, how's my volume?
Good.
Pretty good.
Okay. I had to change my setup because I was expected to be home about 2.5 hours earlier, and I basically had a makeshift computer setup. It's not. I'm using a totally different mic.
Okay, I have a question about Roxana Troy because, like I guess Dave and Jaemeel, you guys kind of view her the same way, whereas I view her as like kind of like an opportunist, somebody that, yes, puts herself into certain circumstances. I think she kind of wishes she hadn't, but then finds a way to kind of get out of those circumstances and then uses people. I don't look at her like she uses friendships to get what she wants. And then sometimes it works out like in this episode, but I think a lot of the times it probably wouldn't, I think she's more likely to burn bridges than to build them. Jaemeel, do you kind of, I don't know. Am I talking crazy here, or
no? You're right in that respect, and that's how she interacts with people. That's why she has so few friends that she has to specifically count on. It's not like she's like, I'm going to go to Jean-Luc. No, that wouldn't be the right answer to this situation. She knew the tool that she needed to solve this issue was Odo, right? Just like how you would know that if you needed something specific, you might go to Dave. Another time, you might go to Rich, right? It depends on the situation. There's a right tool. Not calling you a tool, Dave. You're the Daviest Dave I know.
Yeah, but I understand where you're going with it. Like, yeah, like that this is the best person she can think of to try to help her with this problem.
Yeah.
But what's the problem? That she doesn't want to be with this guy that she got in and is having a baby with, and she's like fleeing. She fled her marriage.
She doesn't want to give up the baby. The baby will be taken away from her until it's 16, I guess.
Yes.
Right. And so that's which I'm sort of on board with. I'm like, well, why his culture be damned? And you know, like this is a Betazoid Tavinian marriage, and therefore the Tavinian law I don't think is supersedes Beta Z law per se. And so it's like, I don't know.
She can't go to the Federation because the Federation wouldn't necessarily want to get in the middle of that type of politics, whereas Odo has a lot more mobility in terms of how he's able to solve this issue. At the same time, folks, this is why communication is important. If you state everything ahead of time, right, in terms of like your relationships, and you detail what the expectations are, right, because it's not like it was like they got married out of the blue, right? No. This occurred over a period of time. They should have communicated it properly, right, and to indicate what the expectations are with children or whatever, so and such.
And that's kind of alluded to. She mentions like, well, we were going to be different. And I don't know if all Beta Zeds can get pregnant in like their 60s or 70s, but I guess at least Luxana did. And, so she's like, well, he said it was going to be different. But then once we got married, it wasn't I became more like, I was almost a prisoner in my own home. He says, Odo says, why don't you just go to Beta Z? He's like, well, I can't go there because then he'll find me. And I'm like, aren't you like the daughter of the 5th house of Beta Z, the holder of the sacred chalice of reeks and all this other shit? Like, don't you? I think you're pretty important on your own planet.
An ambassador.
But for whatever reason, she chooses Odo, Deep Space Nine, which is, I guess, kind of like neutral territory or something, and so this is where she goes. Like, he doesn't have to say yes either. He could have told her to hit the road, but he goes out of his way to help her. So as much as
Jack,
I think you feel like she's manipulative. She kind of set this situation up. She kind of wanted to trick Odo into marrying her from the beginning.
Yes, that is how I feel about this. I feel like this whole thing about like she went there for protection, I think is kind of a naive ruse. Like it was like, oh, Odo, protect me. Oh, and here's the deal. If I know Odo came up with the idea, but that's because she knew he would start researching Tavinian law and how to best remedy this situation. And like, you're right. Jameel's right that she did know the right tool for the job. She knows what kind of a person Odo is. He's a researcher. He's a meticulous investigator. That he was going to figure out a way to help her because he cares about her, because they both kind of understand that they're both kind of outcasts in their respective circles. They're both kind of like, I guess, they're like freaks, like they're like, they look at each other like, I don't fit in with these people. And, we both, all that kind of, we're like loners, I guess would be, a good word to use as well.
Right.
So I do think, but I do find her very like, it's subtle. I will give you that. It's subtle, but I do find her, she kind of like gets on the train and she knows that train is going to end up in the fact that she's going to get what she wants, And I think she's smart about it. Like she's like, oh, I'll have to have some moments with Odo where we bond, where we kindle our friendship, and then at the end of the day, by the end of the episode, I'm gonna get to keep the kid, get the marriage annulled, and it's all gonna work out for me, And I think I see some calculation in her, But I don't know, Dave. Would you disagree here? You think she's just there, like where it's just like, I just need protection. Odo, protect me, and then we'll go from there. Like she's not that much of a forward thinker.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I understand why you're saying those things, but like it's not. But it this is Star Trek in the '90s. Like if she was really up to something here, I think they would go out of their way to tell us. They would tell the audience, like in directly or indirectly. Like characters to like like you can kind of you figure out pretty quickly here that Onaya is not a good character. Not someone I think you right from the beginning you can kind of tell that she's not just as
She's
innocent.
basically a rapist.
Yeah, basically.
Succubus, yeah.
Succubus.
I was gonna say rapist because, like, I'm sorry. I saw game theory there. She straight up used game theory on Jake Sisko to seduce this man to get what she wanted.
Right, and that's what Jeff's been saying. Well, Luxana manipulated Odo in the same way that Onaya manipulated Jake, and I go, I don't know. I don't know if
no, she's literally sucking the energy out of him. It's a little bit different, but I think like they're both manipulating. I think both the story, like I was saying to Dave Jaemeel, that the story is two women come to the station, both with ulterior motives to get what they want out of men that have a lot of naivete. Basically, that's kind of
these poor innocent men. These they're just naive and they're so susceptible.
I think in Odo's case, we're not giving him enough credit. He allows a lot what happens to him to occur, right? Because he does have feelings for Luxwana, right? So is it she's preying on those feelings? Well, yes, but he's also the type of person who, like, he puts boundaries, and he allowed his boundaries. She didn't force those boundaries to come down, right?
True.
So I think that it's kind of unfair to paint both situations with the same brush, whereas Jake was manipulated from the get-go, right?
Wait a second. Did the Muse not say to Jake, "Look, I can give you what you want. Would you choose basically to die young but to live on in infamy?" She basically says that to him, and he says, "Yeah."
The guy goes to the bar and promises this girl that he's going to take her to the best party in the world. You just need to make a quick stop at his house before they go to the party.
What do you mean? Like to me, like, okay.
I'm just saying that was a straight pickup. Like I don't see how you don't see how that was just a straight pickup line. That's her game, right? She played her game to the T. It's the exact same way she probably did it with the previous artists, right?
Sure. She knows it works.
Yeah.
But she preys on the ambition. Like, just like I find Waxana preys on like this, like she preys on relationships. She preys on the I think like she knows Odo is a vulnerable, emotional, kind of lonely guy that knows, and she knows that Odo has this connection with him. And she's in a predicament, and she's like you just said, before, who's the best tool to get me out of this predicament? Odo, and I'm going to manipulate this to kind of work out in my favor. Now, does she suck the energy out of Odo? No, that's I agree that the Muse is a lot more nefarious, but the Muse also I feel like is a lot more upfront.
Dave, you're gonna have to. Jeff swaying me. He's swaying me over to his side.
The Muse is not up front. Like, the Muse doesn't say, "I'm going to totally suck out your synaptic energy until you die." That was never discussed.
She doesn't say that, but she does say, like, wouldn't you like to have your name known throughout the quadrant? Like, I see you're having a trouble there. I can help you. Like,
right. So it's like a classic make a deal with the devil kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, and when a story's too good to be true, it probably is. All those kind of things that, Ben Sisko probably should have taught Jaco. you know, and he
Mhm.
kind of just goes along with it, you know, because he's like this, you know, I guess like she sees in a lot of the artists that she's pulled the energy out of is a desperate, struggling artist.
I
Yeah.
think consent is the most important thing in these two situations. And
Mhm.
Odo has the ability to grant consent, whereas Jake never does.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
I agree with that he doesn't consent to the energy being pulled out of him, but he does consent to the idea of like her being his muse. Like,
But
you
she's
know,
just like, I'm rubbing your neck. Like that's all he consented to was rubbing his neck or rubbing like his whatever. She's like the Vulcans call these tidalalias or whatever the heck
and
she
the
says.
chakras, yes.
Yeah, and the chakras.
Human
Yeah, and like so that's all he consents to, not the manipulation. Like before you came on, Jaemeel, I was saying that Anaya might be from the same species as Ronan, the space ghost in the candle that was manipulating Beverly Crusher and a long line of those Howard women before her. You know, like they're just kind of like they're like, well, it's you know, yeah, we kill them, yeah, they die, but it's pretty good you know, right till the end. Like there's at least like we give them something. Either in the
I
case
gave
of
her the best night of her life. Hey.
yeah, they're like in Ronan's case, he was like, I gave them love and companionship. In Onaya's case, a little bit of love and companionship, but more of like the greatness, like the contributions, the art. Yes, they die, but it's worth it. You know, I think her argument is nonsense. But she's completely you know, but she has a rationale. I think as a villain, I think, you know, most villains are better off if their motivations are at least understandable, and I guess in hers they kind of are.
Sensible, I would say. Why would
They're
you give up your food source?
They're completely understandable. Like she literally says that's how she survives.
Yeah,
But like she gorged herself in a buffet.
Yeah, well, that's
yeah. She was like, give me all your ideas, Jake Sisko. Oh, nom, 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 nom. You know, like no orange juice for you.
Orange juice.
And well, yeah, and she does say that at the end that, you know, most artists, you know, would take breaks and kind of be like, okay, that's too much, or, you know, and yeah, he's like, no, I can keep going, and she's like, oh, I can't keep eating these lobster tails, but they're so damn good, you know.
She's like, why don't you take 5 minutes? You know, I'm just gonna like burp or whatever, and just, you know, then you'll come back.
He's like, but it's just a nosebleed. It's just a.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've only got brain hemorrhaging, and then he collapses in the replimat, and then she just comes and gets him, you know. And so this episode,
She's like a junkie. She took him to like a sub corridor, right? A service tube, and just continued to finish the job there. Like she dragged him in an alley.
right? I knew her from somewhere too. This is the actor's name or actress is Meg Forster, who, if you guys remember a little movie called Masters of the Universe from the 1987, and Evil Lynn was played by this actor, Meg Forster. You know, who tricks Courtney Cox in one of the scene where she pretends to be like the mother, and then like she's like, "Thank you, dear." She takes like the key from her, and then Courtney Cox goes, "No!" That's that. You know, just for that, I was like, "Oh, Meg Forster." Well, you know, I guess this is like 10 years later or something. But
I know who you're talking about, and I think your impersonation and scene replication was
yeah, well, we covered it in Star Trek Actors in Questionable Movies last year, because it had Robert Duncan McNeil from Voyager, Tom Paris himself, and so he's in that movie, and so we're like, oh, let's talk about that movie, and then I was like, oh yeah, she's the voice. It's only really the voice and the eyes, I guess, but she's wearing contact lenses in this episode, but she's a good actor, like, and everything. You know, I think she does her best with what she's given in this episode, which isn't much. You know,
but like, don't you feel that we're kind of cheated with this whole storyline? This should have been over a course of a couple episodes where, you know, Jake, you know, meets this person and then disappears for hours, comes back super tired, and it just progresses till, you know, you have a resolution, right? This could have been 2-3 episodes.
it could have just been one, or it could have just been one episode all on its own, and we could have learned more about who Anaya was, or where she's from, and what's going on with her, and what's going on, what the novel was that he was writing. I think also would have been a cool way to have done this episode and kind of had that dramatized with the other actors from the crew. Like, they could have done some stuff here with the Anaya storyline, and I don't even think they needed to do the Waxana stuff. I think it was unnecessary. It doesn't fit for me in Deep Space Nine. Like, it's like, I get they kind of want to get these out of the way before we get into the Dominion War, but man, it's really dragging at this point for me, where it's just like, this episode was unnecessary for me as far as the Waxana stuff. I liked the Onaya stuff if they had expanded upon it.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I'm just like, why did we get this episode? You know, was it like just because it was time for Cyril Lofton and Rene Auberjonois to have like each a bit more time on the show? Like, why did we get this? Like, what? There's other things they could have done, other episodes they could have written, but it's like they had two kind of half ideas. They glued together. They threw it here near the end of season 4. This is the last time we see Majel Barrett, Roddenberry, playing this character on screen. This is sort of the end of the arc between her and Odo. I think that it's kind of an unsatisfying end because she had been in every season up until this point, and I do like their relationship, and I do like her actually, you know, and I think it's kind of a good ending, but it's also an unfulfilling ending because it doesn't feel like an ending. You know, she's like, I can't stay because if I stayed, then, you know, you would never love me and I resent you, and then we would, you know, whatever. So I gotta leave. And he's like, oh yeah. And then she goes.
Should there not have been like an episode where Odo and Kira and Lwaxana kind of like intersect again, and there's conversations about their relationships involved? And I thought they left some food on the table in that regard.
That I agree with, yeah, because once Kira comes into the Odo romance storyline, that Waxana's never seen from again.
Yeah,
right.
What I was trying to say is, it feels like a walk back in terms of Odo, because the last time we kind of saw his love life being presented on screen was him kind of closing himself off, right? And that was just a couple of episodes ago. And now you have him opening back up again. And it just feels a little too soon, right, for it to happen. Like, why did you make those decisions in the past episodes? You could have left it a little bit more open-ended in terms of his openness for a possibility, rather than, you know, we're no longer going to be friendly or anything like that. I'm closing myself off to people. It just feels like a walk back. It's like, why waste, right? Why waste this time in the previous episode and then coming back?
That was in Crossfire, right? So
Yeah.
that was like 8 episodes ago. And however much time, I guess that would represent on the show. But
like 8 episodes in this kind of serial format just seems like a waste of time. You could have waited later on to do that kind of change for Odo. It just seems so sudden.
Right. This is 4, like in terms of air dates, we're talking like 4 months apart too. Yeah. I think that they really like they gave I think Odo's speech at the wedding I think is really good. I think like I just wanted to I did pull it. It is long, but I just wanted to pull this clip because I think it's a good one.
Before I met her, my world was a much smaller place. I kept to myself. I didn't need anyone else, and I took pride in that. The truth is, I was ashamed of what I was, afraid that if people saw how truly different I was, they would recoil from me. Lwaxana saw how different I was, and she didn't recoil. She wanted to see more. For the first time in my life, someone wanted me as I was. And that changed me. Forever. The day I met her is the day I stopped being alone.
She breaks his goddamn heart in this episode. Like, come on. He poured it out here. He was like, you know,
But he
You
had
are-
to. He had to for the ruse, right? Like to work.
But I think
That
he
was
means
no
it.
ruse. That was no ruse.
It's no ruse. I guess it's not romantic love in like his lust for for Kira and what she has. I guess for him is what she says. Like, I want you, but you don't want me in the same way, and it's unrequited. And that's the tragedy. But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Odo was coming around on Lwaxana, and maybe. I was saying earlier before you joined, Jaemeel, I'm like, maybe he was meant to be with her, truly, not with Kira.
He has a joy that you don't see, that you don't really see. And they have a language that they speak to each other that you never really got with Kira and Odo, right? At least with Lwaxana and Odo, they seem like they're communicating on the same level. Obviously, Lwaxana is a lot more emotionally intelligent than Odo, and thus that's where the manipulation comes into play. But Odo does allow her to be manipulated. Odo knew that once she got down on the ground, she was sleeping there. She was not leaving to go back, right?
But like there's this whole thing when she first arrives on the station. Lwaxana is like, hey, this is the predicament I'm in, and he's like, oh, I appreciate your situation. I'd love to help. And she just immediately goes, I knew you would. You're such a sweet, sweet man. Like, she's clearly manipulating him, and she knows how to do it. And so for me, like, I see what you guys are saying, but at the same time, Kira actually cares about Odo. Lwaxana does not, in my opinion. Odo cares about Lwaxana, but I don't think Lwaxana cares about Odo.
I just think Lwaxana wants him to love her back, and she knows he doesn't, not in the way she wants. Even though she doesn't need to read his mind, that's their other connection. Lwaxana can read everybody's mind except for Odo, and she tends to there was that other guy, the guy that had to die at 60 in Next Generation that she was into. She can read his mind either. She seems to like these species. I don't know if she could read Michael and Sarah's mind or not, but yeah, like that their connection is different.
She likes a challenge.
Because remember, she was always trying to marry like Picard and Riker and everybody on Next Gen, but I think that was just to get them uncomfortable, keep them off base.
Yeah.
This is a Bella and Edward situation. Edward is I'm bringing Twilight to Star Trek,
Right.
You're bringing Babylon 5. Welcome to Twilight at 10.
Oh, speaking of Babylon 5, I have a reference on that.
Yeah, I bet you did. Edward is attracted to Bella partly because she is an unknown quantity, an unknown factor to him. He cannot read Bella's mind. So Lwaxana is attracted to Odo because he's a mystery. She's able to manipulate said mystery, but it's still something where she feels more on an even playing field as opposed to with other people where she can, they're an open book completely to her.
Can I get Jeff? Do you want to know what the Babylon 5 reference?
Yeah, I figured you were gonna come in with it anyway.
Well, do you guys remember that Bajoran nurse?
Yes.
That's Lita Alexander, man.
Who?
That's Patricia Tallman.
I'm not aware.
That she's Lita from Babylon 5. She's from the Psy-Cop resistance, and she was a level 5, and then the Vorlons took her and they modified her. Mm-hmm. She had a big role on Babylon 5 at this exact same time, and her character doesn't even get to speak in this episode, Jeff.
Why did Lita meet Lita?
It's a different spelling of Lita. It's Lyta.
Yeah, that would have been great if Lita had been just hanging out in the infirmary here. That would have been fantastic.
She was also in the Night of the Living Dead remake. You remember that one, 1990?
Not really.
She was Barbara. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Somebody's watching Dave, I know.
Yes, somebody's watching this somewhere and goes, I'm right with you, Dave. I know exactly what you're talking about.
We're fist pumping in the air, Dave.
Yeah.
Look, well, come on. And beyond that, we also had Michael Ansara in this episode, who's he's in Star Trek as well, but he was also on Babylon 5 playing the Technomage.
I felt cheated that we didn't get more of him.
he like why did they cast him in this episode? His role is like so insignificant. They could have got any like day player to play this role.
Could have played this role.
Jeffrey Combs or anybody who was like available for somehow Michael Ansara was cast to do 2 scenes. I don't really get it. Like he's wasted here. He doesn't like when he leaves the room, I like how he just walks through the crowd. He doesn't actually try to walk around them. He just tell our son to speak well of me or to speak well of me when they talk about me later on. But I'm never going to see you or the kid again. I want to see that character. I want to see that child, the child of Michael Ansara and Majel Barrett, who now would be all grown up, right? You could throw that character into like Picard or something.
Yeah, that'd be good. But it's
16 years. Like it's like I would love to get back with him after this situation is resolved. 16 years.
Yeah, that's when he's allowed to know about the other sex if he had been raised in the what were they called? The Tavini's or something? Tavinian ways. So
I don't know. Yeah, it did seem like you're right. Anybody could have played this role, and it really wasn't important. This whole episode is odd. I think it like there was some odd rewrites that occurred because, like, yeah, you're right. Why cast this guy like for like a couple scenes where it's like basically
this is Kang, man. Like he's a great actor. He was amazing in Blood Oath, and here he is like playing like kind of like. I don't know, like this nothing character. Like, I guess, everyone's got
free a weekend and he's like, sure, why not?
Yeah, I need a paycheck, so sure, I'll do it. But yeah.
I want to get new rims, or I don't know what he would want in the early 90s.
He wanted VCR. Yeah, I want a new one of those DVD players. He's saying. Is Michael Ansara still alive? No, he died.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like he's known for 2 characters, Kang and Jaemeel. This guy.
Okay, I feel like have we said what we wanted to say about this episode? Is there anything I'm leaving out that
nope
we should bring up? Because I feel like we've kind of said what we wanted to say about this.
Yeah, you're right.
Just the funny scene, I think, where she's depressing. Like Kira and Dax and Worf, and they're all in their holosuite gear.
Yeah.
And she's just bringing the mood down, and Quark's like, "I'm gonna throw her out of here unless you get her out of here, Odo." That was a kind of a funny scene, and the fact that Worf knows her, and like they kind of brush all over that because they haven't really interacted since he came to this show. But they don't even go there.
They end up going to the creepy holodeck program. Whenever I think of Luxwana, I think of the creepy blue face holodeck program where it's like with the face and it's like
right.
with Alexander.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So awful. I hate that. That's the stuff of nightmares.
It is, and so is this episode in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Let's get to the fun facts, or shall we say the scary
double F,
the double F with Jeff. Ready to talk about this episode. Okay, the first fact I wanted to bring up here was kind of what we just were talking about. That in 2012, the director of this episode, David Livingston, who's actually a pretty good Star Trek director.
He directs a lot of episodes in this season as well. Like he's kind of every 4th episode almost.
He did Dr. Bashir Bassoon. He
did The Visitor.
He does You Are Cordially Invited, Sons of Mo,
Homefront.
Crossover, The Dice Cast. So he's done a bunch of them. He said about this episode, he stated that he wished the Muse had never been produced, for remarking, quote, "That was not good." End quote.
Oh, that's great.
What specifically?
Everything. He wished the whole episode didn't happen, basically.
Yeah. If it didn't happen, what would we have lost?
Nothing. Okay. This is the only thing we lose is this is the final appearance of Waxana Troy. So this is like you had said, Dave. This is the last. This is.
But because it's not a good episode, that seems like a down. It's our last on-screen appearance ever.
Kinda
too.
sucks. Yeah, like it's
Like if she had gone out in Xanthi Fever in that one, would that have been better?
yeah, than this. Yeah, I think so. Because she doesn't come across as a good guy in this episode. She comes across as a manipulator. Okay, Waxana Troy recalls the death of her daughter Kestra as described in TNG's episode Dark Page.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, like I would like to know with what happened to this child. Did this child have a relationship with Deanna Troi, who is a main character in Star Trek? So, like, I'm curious to see if they ever pay any service to that at all.
In Picard or Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? They brought back Sonia Gomez in Lower Decks. They can bring back this character.
All the loose ends. Dave, they're going through it with a fine teeth comb.
The story Jake is working on is actually The Commodore by C.S. Forrester, an author of navigational stories which were loved by Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek and the husband of Majel Barrett. Jake was also puttering on it in The Visitor.
Yeah, like I think it was kind of the one thing I do remember while watching this episode, especially the first time, was like, what's it like? They don't, you never see them like typing anything, like typing their stories. He's always like writing it with a pen, but on a pad. And I'm like, how does that work? And the technology of being a writer at this time, I was a little bit more, I would have liked them to do more with that. Just show me like what's the futuristic version of this.
They never focus on the pads and how they work. They just make sounds and they look at them and they go, they never really get into it, the minutia of how those pads work.
Just randomly start hitting things, like it's a calculator. That's how I see some people use it in the background. It's like just treat it like a calculator, just randomly, hitting buttons, and it's like, oh, it's done. They're barely looking at it.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, guys, this episode was nominated for an Emmy Award. Can you believe it? Do you know
special effects has to be special effects?
Nope.
Costume design?
That is correct,
Okay.
Jaemeel. Costume design.
What costume?
There was a lot of costumes that not only Waxana wore, but the Muse had. If you looked at what Sisko was wearing before in the scene where he was going to go over to Bajor to go on safari, they're all wearing different clothing than they normally do in this episode.
The Camelot clothing.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
I don't know how this got nominated for.
You're telling me that this, like, his Bajoran safari outfit got an Emmy nomination?
That and Waxana's clothes and what Jake is wearing, his purple thing going on. Like, Waxana's wearing like 6 different outfits in this episode. Even Odo's
They're
wearing
all
like
ugly.
weird pajamas.
They're like some of the ugliest things I've ever seen.
Dude,
Like,
look
they
up
are.
who it got nominated with, and I think that you'd be like, I don't think the other ones are good either.
Oh,
this
that
looks
was-
awful. This isn't good.
No, you know what that
It
looks
looks
like?
like Snuggies. Like they're wearing Snuggies and getting married in Snuggies.
That looks like from Camelot as well.
Beta Z weddings, you're supposed to be naked.
It's not a Beta Z wedding,
Well, she's Betazoid.
but it's a traditional whatever.
Whatever's. Well, that's not very Betazoid of her. Like, come on. There should have been a wedding. There should have been a wedding back on Beta Z, if you ask me. Like, look at this grossness that she's wearing. This is not good.
Wait, one thing we missed then. If it was a Beta Z wedding, then Quark would have been supportive because she would have been naked and had.
Yeah, he would have been like this. I'm with it. But he would only want the women to be naked, not the men. When everyone has to be naked.
She looks like she's wearing a vineyard. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm shocked by this Emmy nomination. Did it win?
No, I lost.
No, it got nominated.
She's nominated.
Like, what's so great about this? I don't get it.
Look and see what it got nominated with against. I think
I'm
think
looking
that
this
might
up. This we must know.
so. That's details discovered by Dave in a second. Jeff, you should continue.
Listen to this fun fact. I think this one will also equally blow Dave's mind. Near the end, Onaya names Tarbold as one of the many authors she has inspired. Tarbold was the fictional poet whose, quote, Nightingale Woman, end quote, was recited by Gary Mitchell in Star Trek's original series, Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Yeah.
Tarbold, Dave.
I know who somebody has something to say about that. Where is he?
Hold on.
Is it Kirk?
Gary Mitchell was an ant, and I am a lion!
That's right. Okay, Michael Ansara, who plays Jaal, played the iconic Klingon character Kang in the original series episodes Day of the Dove and also D9 episode Blood Oath and of the Voyager episode Flashback. Yes, you got to be in. He didn't do any Enterprise, and he didn't do any.
Yeah, he's like, I played Kang 3 times, and I played this nothing Jaal in like 2 scenes. You know,
I think he must have done that as like a favor to Majel Barrett or something. That was
will you come in, Michael, and help make this episode?
Yeah, that's what that had to have been. And then he like read the script. He's like, "What? You could have gotten anybody to do this."
This is like a nothing role. I'm Michael Ansara. I'm a
schedule a dinner. Let's meet up for dinner. You'll do the episodes. We'll cut early, and we'll go for lunch. It's been so long.
Yeah, we give you a couple scenes, and you don't have to work that hard.
Yeah. We'll fly you out.
No, we'll fly you out. Okay. Worf speaks only 2 words in the entire episode. They used Michael Dorn very well in this episode. The 2 Michaels.
I don't care. I'm cashing the paycheck.
Michael Ansara and Michael Dorn. They really used them to their full potential in this episode. Character actress Meg Foster, known for playing over-the-top villains, makes her only Star Trek appearance here. Yeah. She also starred in Masters of the Universe alongside Frank Langella, who played Bajoran Minister Yaro Essa, and also a Voyager star Robert Duncan McNeil, also known as Tom Paris, and Anthony DeLongis, who played Maja Kala.
The Kazon. Okay, I got the information about this nomination, this Emmy nomination. Okay, so 1996, outstanding costume design for a series. It was up against The Nanny, Sisters, Picket Fences, Jag, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Women,
Jag,
Avonlea. It ultimately lost to Sybil.
Wait, what? Dave, do you feel better now?
I don't know if I feel better about this or not.
The Nanny? So the only thing in costumes for the Nanny they have is Fran's dresses, right? Her tight skirt dresses. And the rest of the people wear suits. Was it school uniforms? And Niles wears like his butler outfit. Like, she's the only thing that changes.
Like, I think that these Emmys are not worth anything if this is the kind of competition we're talking about here. Like, oh, well, Sybil, it was killing it on costume design. It was up against Deep Space Nine's worst episode of season 4, potentially. But, and they didn't even look that good. It wasn't like, well, the plot sucked, but at least they looked amazing in those costumes. I didn't think that once watching this.
Listen to this one. John Paul Lona, one of the alien individuals who boards Deep Space Nine at the beginning of the episode, won the walk-on role by designing the winning makeup for the alien in a competition run by Playmates Toys. Lona named the character Runep and the species Racinians.
Wait, was he the Bolian with the toupee?
Probably.
That's actually kind of cool. That's a cool contest to win.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally, we have a double 47 reference. Listen to this. Jake's pad has 4747 at the top when Captain Sisko comes into their quarters. That's right. Look for it next time you watch this episode, which will be never.
Oh, it was this guy, everybody. This was the guy who won the walk-on role. They play in the Racinian.
The Racinian. That's a cool makeup.
It's a cool looking makeup there. Yeah, and he did that by decorating a toy, a Playmates figure.
Playmates, like he designed a Playmates toy for the alien in a competition run. Wow. So basically, they needed a new alien, and he came up with it.
Oh, neat. Okay, right on.
Interesting design.
Interesting design. Yeah, like his beard kind of goes up into his head. He's got a butt on the top of his head. It's cool. Yeah.
So, okay,
hey,
and that's it.
That's all the double F?
That's all we got for double F.
All right, let's get to ratings, and see how much we loved this episode. Bringing it up. Here we go. Okay, just make this a bit bigger. Jeff, start us off.
I'll get 2.5 on this one.
Like I said, I really like. I do think that the wedding scene is good. With Odo and Luxana, although I think it's the fact that it's just kind of a one and done is kind of disappointing. So at most, I think this is worth a 4.5.
I'm surprised because I'm going to give it its highest mark, and I'm going to give it a 5.
Don't break the bank here, Jaemeel. Like we can't.
I just feel like there's parts of this episode that I do enjoy, but it's ultimately it falls flat due to some of the writing and the decisions in terms of how they position certain characters. If this was stretched over a longer period of time and not just a single episode story, I think it might have led to something that could have been a lot more substantial. So, but it doesn't take away from the issues of the episode, which is puts characters in positions where they look stupid, and I feel stupid watching it, and that's stupid. So you lose 5 points automatically.
Yeah, and so we were hoping maybe Davin would join us here for the end. He hasn't. I think the baby hasn't gone to bed. So right now, our 3 votes will stand as this averages at a 4.0. Not the worst episode of season 4. That would be Crossfire.
Really?
But that was the other episode that had to do with Odo's love story and love.
I give it a 2.
Life.
I gave it the same score. You give me an Odo dumb love story episode, you're getting a 2.5 from Jeff, old Jeff Meister.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, I think just because it deserves to have points deducted because it put Patricia Tallman in this episode and didn't even use her properly. That's Lita Alexander, everybody. Babylon 5. Recognize.
I would allow the deduction.
Yeah, it's going down to 4.4 just for that.
Oh, let's tie in my Shattered Mirror score.
Just for that. Anyway, so that's a 4.0, 5.7 IMDb, which is very low for even compared to Crossfire, which has a much more favorable rating. This is considered to be a bad episode. You can tell by that rating. So, and who wrote that? Major Barrett Roddenberry co-wrote this story.
That is why this episode
and
sucks.
That's why it has Michael Ansara, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That she wrote it with Renee Echevarria, who's a good writer. He usually writes great episodes.
I would imagine he wrote the Jake storyline. He
wrote this Crossfire story too.
Yep. And you know what? He does really good work later on, but man, he's not putting in strong work here.
Oh man. Okay.
Go back. What's the Ronald D. Moore episode? Sons of Moog, is that it?
Ronald D. Moore's most recent episode was Sons of Moog.
Yeah. And oh no, he did another one, teleplay. He did the teleplay.
Oh, he's done a lot of these in season 4. But yeah, usually if his name's on it, it's going to be good. He did the teleplay for this one, which was Armand Bashir. Yeah. Like most of the stuff that Ronald D. Moore is on is good. I think Renee Echevarria, maybe not, hit and miss.
Well, I think this was Major Barrett coming in and doing. I think we should do this, and they were like, "Okay,
Renee, we need to write an episode with me and the other Renee, and we're coming. I'm going to be pregnant, and then he's going to protect me from his new husband.
Yeah,
And he's like looking at it, and he's like, I guess I'll figure out something.
All right, we'll figure this out. We'll make it palatable. So one day, Dave Mader, Jeff Mader, and Jaemeel Robinson will maybe give it a 5."
maybe if they're lucky. Jeff, like we kept saying that season 4 it was going to be so much better than season 3, but our average right now is only slightly better.
Do you know what? I've forgotten how many duds there are in this season. There are some great episodes, but there's some duds. Like
tell me we got something to look forward to.
Season 5. Oh, you mean next week?
Well, yeah, or something. What comes after this?
That's a good question. What does come after?
It's called For the Cause. Oh. I know what this
Cisco
is.
must face betrayal when evidence surfaces that Cassidy is smuggling the Maquis. Meanwhile, Garrick makes acquaintances with Ciel. Yeah, this is a good episode. This is the whole Cassidy has to go to prison and Cisco has to be okay with it.
And Eddington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, does Eddington? Do we find out Eddington's betrayal in this episode? Or
I think this is the Eddington betrayal episode. Right?
Oh, is it?
My lucky loony.
I hope so. I hope you're right because, I think you're wrong. I think this is just a pure Cassidy Yates episode. Maybe you're right. Maybe we find out about Eddington as well in this episode, but it's not really about Eddington. It's more about.
It'd be kind of weird if it he is in the episode.
Yeah.
As I'm seeing here, and yet we haven't seen him in a while. When was the last time Eddington was on this show?
A while.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like we should look at it. Oh, wasn't it the one where like they were on the Defiant and then he like didn't save somebody?
I think it was Armand Bashir was like the last time he was really here.
That sounds right.
And that was like 10, 11 episodes ago.
No, Rejoined.
He's in
wait.
Rejoined?
Sorry, yep, you're right. Armand Bashir was his last one. You're right. And then Rejoined was right before that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always liked that episode. I'm looking forward to breaking down. Maybe we'll have a few more panelists to talk about that one.
Yeah, that'll be good. It's fascinating to see, Avery Brooks go down this dark hole of vengeance where he's willing to blow up an entire planet's atmosphere.
You betrayed your uniform.
You betrayed your uniform. Yeah, he gets so irate. It's so fun to watch him overact.
You betrayed your uniform.
I love the way the guttural, the anger, he's so angry he almost can't get the words out.
Yeah.
I love watching him when he's like that because he's a fascinating captain to watch when he's pissed off.
Oh yeah.
And he gets real pissed off when it comes to the whole Eddington storyline. So that'll be fun. I think that will kind of be the conclusion of season 4, and then they'll get into the finale where did they do a tease at the end of season 4 with the Dominion? I feel like they do. But I thought there was more Dominion in this season, Dave. I'm so surprised how little there is.
I think we're gonna get I think before the season's over, I think we get Wayoon. I think we get his introduction before the season's over. But yeah, the Dominion is kind of like this looming threat at this point. But it's more about the Klingons in season 4. It's like well now, and even into a bit of season 5, where it's like no, it's more about like we're fighting the Klingons and the Federation against Klingons. And it's only when we realize it was just the changelings kind of manipulating everybody that they're able to kind of put that behind them and kind of start working together. But the damage is done. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, join us next week for that. Dave, what do we have coming up on Live Longer podcast and all the other podcasting networks that we have coming? There was a Beatles podcast last night that I think some peoples may want to check out.
Yeah, yes. So we'll get through all of those. Starting last night, also, Jeff, here on Live Long and Podcast, the Star Trek channel, we began a whole new podcast series. You may be familiar with it.
I've got faith to believe.
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road.
And from here to there.
I will touch the sky.
How many times did you play that shit?
Quite a bit last night.
Yeah.
And I will play more. Those I've pulled different clips from the theme song, and I have them on the ready all the time just to throw them out. So we started last night with Broken Bow, the 2-parter that kicked off Star Trek Enterprise 20 years ago this year, and we're going to be watching all of those episodes in order until we finish up with season 4. That's Jody Simpson and Adam Woodward leading that, and myself and Kevin Millard along. On the NX-01 as they talk about the original Enterprise, the Starfleet crew that kind of kicked it all off before there was even a Federation. So check that out. That's starting now on Monday nights, and we'll be continuing that into next Monday. Of course, D Space 9 at 9ish as we continue our quest to watch all of these episodes. We're quickly looking to wrap up here season 4, and then we also have a whole bunch of the new Star Trek shows that we've been doing. earlier this year. We talked about Star Trek Lower Decks. We covered that whole second season. Star Trek Prodigy, now in their first season. I've done the first 5 episodes along with Jessica Chan and Damon Skellhorn. We talked about that. That's on hiatus. They took that show's off for about a month, and we'll be coming back in January. We'll be covering the new episodes starting back then. And then Star Trek Discovery is in its 4th season right now. We'll be covering the 4th episode of season 4 this Thursday at around 9:30, 10, along with Adam Woodward, Michael Chan, and hopefully Ashley Millard as well. And what else am I forgetting? Oh, yes. And we also have our little show called Star Trek Radio Theater, which is kind of where we do like script reads, reenactments of the different shows. Coming up, we have on December 19th, we're going to be doing this one, Star Trek First Contact, guys. You guys already know this because you're in it, but we're going to be doing our script read of that storyline and then editing it down that into like a tighter version. We just did a Lower Decks one at the end of November. I still have to edit that one, so we're excited to. Every year we do like a movie as sort of our season finale for Radio Theater, which is longer than we typically do. Jaemeel, I'm excited to hear your Beverly Crusher.
It's going to be marvelous. I've been, subtly working on my voice for it. I think that I did some work last one with Wejduj, so I'm hoping that I can build upon that performance with this one. I want a Beverly Crusher to be remembered.
Yeah, I believe it will be. I got it easy. I just got Picard. I'd be like, this line must be drawn. No further. No further. So that would be me.
I want to hear the that machine gun.
Yeah, I'll be like, take that, Ensign Lynch. Which was they were filming this movie around the same time that they made this episode, which is why I think Michael Dorn has like 2 lines. They're like, come over here, Michael Dorn, and like be in this scene with like Majel Barrett, just say like you're depressed. Okay, now run back over there and then fight some Borgs. Okay, good.
In the future, you are sort of reaching up towards the universe, the sky,
for a leak,
looking for a leak to find out how to get us to warp speed.
Yeah.
This engine will let us go boldly.
That's from last night's episode. Anyway, so check that out. Also, we have Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, which is our channel where we talk about things that are not Star Trek related. And as Jeff mentioned last night, covering part 2 of the Beatles Get Back documentary series, the new one by Peter Jackson that came out on Disney Plus, right? I get those confused sometimes. It's Disney Plus. I was on part 1. Jeff, along with the Shields brothers last night. How did that go, Jeff?
It's good. Jake is a big fan of the Beatles. He knows a lot of the lore and a lot of the history. So we got right into the White Album, right into the Let It Be's, right into everything with the Get Back documentary that is taking Disney Plus by storm.
And I'll be coming back to talk about part 3 with you guys next Monday night. As well, we have we're actively covering Survivor season 41 right now. We're down to final 7 now, final 6, I think.
Yeah.
In season 41, covering that Wednesday nights, 9:30 p.m., which will be tomorrow night. As that show is winding down, I got to imagine it's going to finish before Christmas. It seems like, even though they never announce anything about how many episodes we have left. But check that out. Plus, Marvel Cinematic Universe podcasts we've been doing on Super Mater Brothers Podcasting all year, starting with WandaVision and talking about all the new Marvel MCU installments. Coming up, we'll be doing Spider-Man No Way Home, and then also Hawkeye, which is actively airing in its first season. And whichever one finishes first, we'll be recapping. I think it's going to be Spider-Man first and then Hawkeye.
Spider-Man, then Hawkeye.
So we're looking forward to doing that. And have I forgotten anything on Super Mater Brothers Podcasting? I think that's all the active ones we have going on. And then Trivial Debates, our monthly channel where we argue about movies, TV, sports, in like a game show format. We have a host, we have 3 contestants, and we argue about all kinds of different things. We just did an episode with Jody Simpson hosting at the end of November. It was an international affair with Max and Dylan and Alex representing their different countries. Max will be be hosting the next one. That will be on December 27th, the day after Boxing Day. I'm still looking for some contestants for that. If anyone knows anybody who's looking, but check out Trivial Debates monthly, and of course check out Davin Skellhorn's podcast. It's a Star Trek podcast called Locutors of Trek. Right there. Oh, right there. I was just on that on Sunday. We were doing the Geek Tall Challenge. It was like a Klingon themed trivia. If you guys have not watched that yet, you need to, because Davin was committed as Galron for the entire hour. Like he was like, because there was one point where I was like, "Hey, can I have a rebuttal?" He was like, "There is no rebuttal. Say what is in your heart the first time. You are a dung beetle." So he was really funny. I was like, oh my god, he needs to play Galron in a future Rita theater, I think. But yeah, so check out Locutors of Trek, all kinds of great Star Trek podcasts, trivias, and different things that he does over there with Dave Pugsley. So check that out as well. And I think that's all our different properties, Jeff, and things.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for the rundown of all of the stuff we have going on over here at our many podcasting networks. Join us next time for the Cause, where Cassidy Yates goes to prison. This has been Tuesdays Night at 9-ish for the Muse. Jeff Mater, Dave Mater, Jaemeel Robinson. That's it.
All right.
I brought some of my stories for you to read.